Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon Wong Pickups.
Hey, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome. We're super happy you're with us wherever you are listening and with whatever you are listening with. I don't know what that means.
You like your prepositions.
I know. But hey, everybody, listen up. This is going to be a really great episode because we have some very special guests on the line.
Greg and Ozzy.
You guys almost got it.
Good enough.
Greg and Ozzy are from Three Monkeys, the famed amp builders and also builders of awesome solderless wire kits.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that in a little bit later. If you are following along at home, not driving, you can go to, where can they go, guys?
3monkeysamps.com or 3monkeysolderless.com.
Excellent. All right. Now that you have that queued up and you're ready to listen, let's get into some stuff. We got a couple things we're going to take care of real quick. First of all, I just want to mention for anybody who is wondering why there is often, why is this noisy on the line? When we have Skype, we can't always control what's going on over the Skype line. So I really do apologize sometimes if things are a little noisy or hissy. I'm doing my absolute best to edit these and make them good for your listening earballs. But sometimes, that's just the way it is, and you get some little bit of line noise. But I would rather give you some line noise and an awesome guest to listen to than not do it at all. So check that one off.
Check.
Okay, great. I also want to, while I have your attentions, I want to bring up the fact that we've got T-shirts available, everybody.
T-shirts?
Yes, T-shirts.
Whoa.
So we've got T-shirts available, and I am going to be putting up a page on the site for you to purchase those. But for right now, if anybody does want them, you can just go to the website and drop us a line on the contact page, and just send out a couple this week. So other people have figured out how to get those, so you should too. $20, free shipping, should do it. That's what I'm thinking, right?
That'll do it.
That sounds like a deal
They're
to me.
super nice. I'm telling you, nice
They
and
are.
soft.
They feel good.
And they come in genuine Halloween color, don't they?
They do.
Yes, they do. So anyways, that is what is going on with the T-shirts and stuff. And I think Tony is he's had his lemon and honey tea. He's got the little air spritzer in his throat. Okay, hit it, Tony.
All right, so let's say I'm a guy or a gal listening to this podcast here. I say, wow, I really like what these guys are doing.
Uh-huh.
I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how can I help? How can I help make the show better, make the show stronger, probably make the show faster?
And you want to contribute, right?
And they'd like to say, make a material contribution to the extension and long life of the Guitar Knobs.
You've added a lot of
Podcast.
words to this.
I have.
Okay.
I'm improvising,
All right.
as they say.
Yes.
So, I'm into knobs this week because I've been on a search, and I'll go into that more on my this week.
Okay.
This week in
Excellent.
music.
Okay.
But let's say for the price of a used cheap Strat knob, you can keep this podcast going. Or if you're like me and just spent a stupid amount of money on some D'Armond clear ice cube knobs.
They're not easy to find.
No, well, yeah, if you dig deep enough. But let's just say you want to splurge a little.
It takes energy.
I mean, you could really help and get a very cool the same T-shirt
The Halloween.
that Todd was the Halloween colors.
Yeah.
You could get
This,
one of
this
those.
is an
as
hour
well.
and a half show, guys.
Okay, jeez, oh man. So, long story short,
Yeah.
if you would like to help us out,
Uh-huh.
you could go
If you're still listening.
Patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs.
Uh-huh.
And all the details are there. It's super easy. You can sign up.
Do you think there's tiers for joining?
Tiers for joining?
Yeah, not tears like TEARS.
They're crying.
Yeah.
They're crying
The
already.
entry-level tiers, like for,
I
for
think there's,
prizes and
like I
stuff.
said, for the price of a cheap Stratton,
Yeah, awards.
all the way up to
Rewards.
a beautiful D'Armond Ice Cube knob.
Yes.
There's something for everybody.
Yes.
And it's easy to sign up.
It is.
It's great, and we would really appreciate it. It lets us know that people are out there listening, like what we're doing, and we really do appreciate your support, sharing in our podcast experience, and we look forward to your continued
Are you running
support.
for mayor right now? What is going on?
Where's the baby? I got to kiss a baby for this one.
Okay, yeah. So patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Thanks, Tony.
You get your name read on
Yeah.
the thing.
Okay, last piece of business. We have two of our really good friends are building some incredibly unique guitars, and they have just teamed up to produce something brand new.
What's that?
Well, Florian Schneider of Millimetric Instruments, a
Florian.
regular on our show,
Good dude.
out of Montreal, Canada, and Nikolai Shore of Shore Guitars out of Berlin, Germany. He's the one who does like the inside out guts on the top of the guitar. It's really wild.
Oh, cool.
Movable pickups and everything. It's really cool. They've teamed up and launched a new podcast called In the Making. And it's a podcast that focuses on the world of luthiery. So they don't get into anything but
Lutes?
making guitars and stuff.
Any
Anyways,
discussion on lutes?
no discussion on lutes. I have a pen. I will throw it at you.
Lutes,
We
dude.
congratulate them on this new venture, and we invite you guys to check them out as well at your local podcast shop. All right.
Nice.
How we do?
That sounds like you were reading it.
I no, I haven't got that memorized, baby.
Wow. Sweet.
Okay. Three Monkeys. Have you guys decided to not do this yet?
Are the monkeys there?
I'm sorry. I fell asleep.
Oh,
All right. So, what's going on in our music worlds this week? Start with Jared.
okay. This week, it's been
Yeah.
very,
Come
very.
on, Bam Bam.
I know, right? I've been working a lot. I've had help over to help me out.
Nice.
But I did find some time to maintenance one of my favorite guitars. It's a 2005 Gibson Les Paul standard, and it was made really well. If for those who are into the newer Les Pauls, and I'm more of a vintage guy, but this particular Les Paul is they made them really well in 2005, in my opinion. And so I have it, and it's a really good workhorse guitar, something that you're not afraid to take on stage and beat up a little bit. But kind of took the strings off and cleaned up the frets and the fretboard, and I changed the bridge pickup out of it.
So when you clean up the fretboard, what do you do?
I use this, was it Rene Martinez or Rene Martinez?
Yeah, Rini.
Yeah, Rene Martinez oil.
Yeah, Renee.
Yeah.
Renee.
Yeah, Renee. I'm sorry, Renee. I apologize for that. But I do use your product, so I use that, and I clean up the fretboard with that, and oil it, and all that kind of good stuff, and change the bridge pickup out of it.
Because that's something that most players should probably do
Yeah,
on a regular basis. One, to clean the gunk off, and two, to oil up the board a little bit, especially if it's rosewood.
exactly. Yeah,
Go get that stuff if you're a player.
that's right. But yeah, it felt nice to just get away from all the pickup stuff and all that production, and work on my own personal guitars, and cleaned it up and put some fresh strings on it, and yeah, I mean, plug it in and just let some stress out.
Cool.
That was pretty much my only besides guitar pickups thing this past week.
Awesome.
Nice.
Great.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Ozzy.
Yes.
What's going on in your week?
Oh God, I don't even know what to talk about. But it's basically all I do is guitar-related crap from morning till night. I mean, my whole house. I swear to God, if you walked in my house, you'd be like, "You obviously are single." Just guitar shit everywhere. But this week, let's see. I've been working on a new guitar design. Like I build guitars too for fun. So I've been working on that a little bit. I've been building also an organ grinder for my good friend Dr. Dewey over at Duke University.
Sweet.
Wow.
So those are the two things that I've been doing since Monday.
Is that like a hurdy-gurdy organ grinder?
No. The organ. No, it's a goofy name for an amp.
Oh,
So it's a little 112 combo that we do here at Three Monkeys, and it's kind of like a GA40.
Yeah,
I
I saw
okay,
that.
so the monkey organ grinder.
I saw that. I saw that earlier when I was checking you guys.
But
Yeah,
you can use hurdy-gurdy for another model then.
Yeah.
That always reminds me, I don't know why, of the Who for some reason, the squeeze box or something.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
cool. Yeah, but that's what I've basically been doing, just normal work, morning till night.
Well, that's still, I mean, that sounds fun from my end anyways.
Oh yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. Tony.
Well, as I alluded to last week, I had my eye on a auction for what was actually a mislabeled, and turns out it is a mislabeled 50s archtop guitar. They had it listed as a 1961 blubbity blubbity blah, and I knew that wasn't the case. But so I won the auction. That's the
You
good
did?
news. I did. And what it really is, I can reveal the full story now.
Okay.
Now that the auction is over and I've won. It's a probably early 50s Bacon Belmont. And now the story behind Bacon Belmonts they were made by Gretsch for the Montgomery Ward catalog. And I happen to have a reprint from the 1954 Montgomery Ward catalog.
I mean,
with
isn't
guitars.
that back then when they had pretty nice guitars?
Well, they had a combination. They had so-so intro ones, mid-grade, and these were the upper-end ones. And Gretsch actually made probably 3 or 4 different models.
And that was they were made here in the USA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gretsch.
That's really cool, man.
So it was a husk, meaning neck and body, and the guy that was selling it, parts off guitars and that sort of thing. But I really wanted this thing because, one, I thought it was really cool, and I love instruments from the 50s and the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And
We all do.
And so I'm going to put it back together.
Awesome.
I found most of the good parts to put it back together. I was talking about knobs earlier, and I was trying to find these D'Armond. They're nicknamed Ice Cube knobs, but they're the clear lucite knobs that D'Armond used on like Thunder Chief pickup assemblies that you would clamp onto a archtop guitar, whatever.
Okay.
Those are cool.
And I actually found a guy on one of the auction sites that has, I don't know how many he has, but I told him I needed 4. He was asking $15 for each knob. I told him I need 4, make me a deal. And so he sold them to me for $10 a piece.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So the right knobs will be on the guitar. I'm going to rewire it. I've got some TV Jones D'Armond style pickups coming in for it.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually pretty excited about this one.
He's a great pickup winder, man. He does a lot of the weird stuff nobody else does.
Yeah. So it's a non-cutaway spruce top, arched maple back and sides and neck. And anything that says bacon on it has to be good.
Yeah, on the headstock, it's a giant thing that says bacon.
Bacon.
Everybody
Belmont.
loves bacon. That's right.
So that's
Brilliant.
my week this week.
That's awesome. How about you, Greg?
So a little bit different for me this week. I had a friend in town who was touring with a friend from Australia who was touring with this guy, Paul Kelly, who's kind of like nobody knows who he is here, but he's like the Van Morrison of Australia or the Dylan of Australia. I mean, the guy's had #1 records and, really good singer-songwriter.
He's a legend over there. He's a legend.
Yeah, definitely. And he's over here playing like little clubs. But he had a problem with his main electric. He mostly plays acoustic. He plays Maitons, the Australian brand. But he had this weird. I've never seen one in person, but it's early 70s, 72, 73 Les Paul signature gold top. which they look like the Jack Cassidy basses. So it looks like
I
a
love those
335 on
basses.
the top, and it looks like it's got a Les Paul cutaway on the bottom,
Yep.
and it's 2 F holes. But it has it's low impedance pickups. Has really odd wiring. The original wiring was like a high impedance input and a low impedance. Oh, sorry, high impedance output, low impedance output. So, but he had it rewired, but it was intermittent. So I basically had to pull all the electronics out of it, which being in a semi-hollow meant I had to pull them all out through the bridge pickup, which was no mean feat with a center block. But it has a little Jensen like line matching transformer in it, which is really odd, So I had to get that out and resolder that and got that working for him. So because I don't normally do guitar repair when I'm not on the road. When I'm touring and teching for somebody, I've got to take care of their stuff or sometimes work on stuff for somebody else in the band. But yeah, so that was kind of cool. And I went and saw the show, and the guy was phenomenal. So now I'm a fan.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And besides that, I gutted my kitchen and I'm building all the cabinets, remodeling my kitchen. So
There you go.
that's I'm in the shop with a lot of plywood.
What kind of Tolex are you going to use on those cabinets?
I don't think my wife would let me do that. And she's pretty cool. She made me hang all my guitars, or a majority of them, in the house. So I have 11 in my office and another 7 in the hallway.
Oh, that's
nice.
cool. Yeah.
So yeah.
You gotta. I'm with you on that. Mine are all hung in our music. We have a room that's just music stuff for me and my kids and stuff. And
It's pretty nice,
just
man.
just being able to just see them makes you want to go pick them up. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand like
Yeah, keeping them in a case.
having them in a case. It doesn't work for me.
Doesn't work. You know what's cool? I use them. I put them on as like decorations, so they're not hanging anywhere. I'll like put them on top of a counter in a corner, or on a like on my nightstand. There's a guitar
Next to
in
the
corner
toilet.
there. Yeah, next to the toilet. Basically anywhere that you could possibly be standing, all you got to do is stick out your arm, and you're probably going to grab a guitar.
I heard
That's
Ed Van Halen does that, man. He takes his guitar everywhere and just plays all the
he does
time.
take it in the bathroom. I'm pretty sure about that. That was in what was that show with Charlie Sheen that he got thrown off of?
Oh geez.
Oh,
the 2.5
3
men.
minutes.
2.5 men.
2.5
It was an
minutes.
episode
I was gonna
where
say 3
in
minutes,
that he
baby.
came out of the bathroom with his guitar on.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use some of those.
He does that.
You can use some of those Dan Armstrong Lucite ones as a cutting board. It works out well.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, for me and mine, basically, I just played. I played a lot, and I'm trying to I'm trying to get into spaces where I'm not being comfortable, and I'm working on a new originals project, so it's really important that I don't be comfortable.
That's right.
And that's a tricky spot if you've been in. I've got a couple other projects where I'm like, hey, we've been doing this thing for a while, to slip right into something, and so I'm just looking for, I'm not trying to make a piece of music. I'm letting it happen, and if I feel like, oh, this feels like something interesting or familiar, I stop and go like the opposite direction and go, how can I make that either dangerous or like potentially I can't do it. That's what I was working on this week, and it was real fun.
Noticed your T-shirt.
Yes, sir.
He's an X T-shirt.
I
Tell
went
us
to
about
go
the show.
see. I went to go see X on their 40th anniversary tour. I posted all kinds of pictures and stuff that, hopefully people enjoyed. I was spitting distance from John Doe, and he's one of my music heroes. And I was just like, and Billy Zoom is right there. Billy's not doing as well these days, but he stood up for a lot of it. He was playing saxophone, and Exene sounded amazing. I mean, the whole band it sounded as good as good as many years ago. I've seen him a couple times, and it was a real treat, because I don't
Awesome.
know if they're gonna be able to do that again.
Sweet.
So
Oh, that's awesome. Billy Zoom is not only a great player, but built his own amps, his reverb unit, all that stuff. He knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
The one he has on stage, if I'm correct, is the same one he built in 1984. It's never broke down. He's toured with it since 1984,
Wow.
and has only replaced the tubes one time, not because they needed it, but because he's like, well, I just figured I should probably do that. But his amp has got a really interesting aspect to it, where he basically has a backup circuit in it. So if the amps fail, he just switches to the afterburners to the other amp. So there's a set of tubes in there that potentially have maybe never even been used. I mean, I'm speculating, but he's not using all of the. That's so smart.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
For a touring amp, that's pretty smart.
Redundancy.
Yeah. Anyways, all right, man, we got so much to talk about. Holy moly! You know what? One of my favorite things is
1, 2, 3, 4 on the floor.
Yep, you guessed it, 4 on the floor, and we're gonna go to Greg first.
All right. Man, it's hard to pick 4. But for me, and I have a lot of pedals. I kind of like pedals.
Yeah.
But for me, I have this BJFE Sea Blue EQ that Bjorn Joel made for me.
I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard that.
That's an awful lot of letters.
He doesn't make it anymore. And this, I mean, it's probably 10 plus years old. So It's really cool, but it's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's got a little bit of a boost, but it's mostly just an EQ. And it's, he's really into high watts. So it's kind of high watty, and it's just a really, really cool pedal. I love my Electro Harmonix Holy Grail. As I have a love-hate relationship with Ryan Adams. So, love his sound, and he's kind of a jerk. But and everybody knows that, including him.
He
used to live around here, so he was quite a jerk when he was here. But and then
so wait, that's the old one, right? The old one.
Yeah, the old one. Sorry.
So just out of curiosity,
like the '90s one.
Just out of curiosity, what is the thing that makes you hang on to that?
It's got that thing. It's just got that just perfect amount of reverb, and kind of, it's like a spring reverb, but it has a little bit of space to it.
Okay.
The first amp we ever designed is called the Orangutan, and that's kind of how we designed that reverb circuit. So it's kind of not in, it's there, but it's not in your way.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it ducks a little bit.
It kind of ducks. So that's why I like the Holy Grail.
Gotcha.
And so TC Stereo Plus Chorus is another one. All of these, obviously old pedals.
Yeah.
But I really like that for splitting two amps if I'm playing 2 amps and with that chorus. And I'm not a huge chorus guy, especially if I'm in a 2-guitar band. I won't even use the chorus, but by itself, it sounds pretty nice.
Yeah. Do you typically run 2 amps?
I typically do. And a lot of the guys I work for when I'm touring do the same. And it's usually 2 kind of different amps.
Yeah.
So my main amp is an amp Ozzy built for me, that is kind of like our Sock Monkey, which is kind of an AC-15-ish thing, but it also it's like half 18-watt Marshall, half AC-15.
Wow.
It's called the Chimpster, and I think we've only made 2 of them.
You got the old NOS Vox.
Yeah, and I have an NOS 67 Vox roll-up speaker in it.
Nice.
So it's really nice. And then all right. So last pedal is one I've just been messing around with, and I'm not really into weird pedals, but the Digitech Dirty Robot I think is a really cool pedal. It's like a synth pedal.
Okay.
It just makes really kind of cool sounds. I have a Roland GR300 guitar synth, the big blue one.
Yep.
The one that Jimmy Page used a lot in the 80s. and it kind of just does some of that stuff.
Interesting.
So, and I don't have to pull out my giant 22-pin cable to get that guitar synth running.
Is that something you use frequently, or
The guitar synth?
yeah?
No, I probably haven't pulled it out in a while just because it's kind of a chore to set up. But I love if I'm playing like solo stuff or just messing around. That's the kind of thing I go to. It has this. The deal with it is more of this. It has this thing called hex fuzz.
Yeah.
And it's only in that unit. And I went through
the pedal, the Digitech.
Sorry, no, this is in the GR300.
Okay, yeah.
But the Digitech does the Digitech does more of a, I don't know, like it's almost like you can do like Rush synth sounds.
Oh, okay.
From like Moving Pictures era Rush.
Right.
But you can do it on the guitar.
That's cool.
Just like single line stuff if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
I just got my daughter into Rush.
Cool.
Yeah.
My wife
She'll be the only girl in the
hates
whole
Rush.
stadium.
She wore my wife's T-shirt to school today, and she's like, "Dad, can you tell me some more Rush songs so that if anybody asks me, I don't look stupid." I was like, "Oh man, that's
Cool."
Yeah, cool. Right on. That's an interesting board, little setup you got there. All right. How about you, Ozzy?
All right. I got a lot of different boards that I use, and I'll tell you, mostly it comes down to just 4 basic generic types of effects. And I'll tell you what I'm currently using on that. I love having an EQ pedal up front for sure. So now I'm using like this old Boss GE10 EQ that looks like it's about the size of a Kleenex box, maybe a little bigger with giant, which is kind of cool. So, you can really see where you're at, and there's a little bit more throw to each slider. So, your adjustment, you can get a little bit finer.
Yeah.
So I really like that thing. I like a boost, but not too much. So I've been using like these EP3 type of pedals that I've been building. And I've been actually stacking them now. So it's like I'll run 3 EP3s in a row and just have different levels of boost that I can get. Got to have a phaser, whether like a small stone or an MXR phase 90, something like that, just to get you a little funk.
Which one? If you got to pull one, which is it?
If I have to pull like one pedal out of that chain,
No, if you're choosing one of the phasers, what are you choosing?
Oh, I'm probably going to use an MXR because that's what my ear is mostly used to. But I got to tell you, a small stone is tough to beat as well, for some of the Zeps kind of things.
Yeah.
But what's cool is like I like to run those phasers in parallel and just run a little bit of phase on all the time. So it's not really noticeable unless I tell you that it's on.
Yeah.
It just kind of creates a little bit of a variation that makes the sound a little bit more interesting.
How do you control that? Because I know, like the 90 is it's just on, and there's just rate. So
well, what I built was another little pedal. Maybe this should be the 4 on the floor pedal. It's another little pedal that's actually a loop, right? So as an input, output, and then a loop in it, and the loop is a parallel loop with a mix control on it.
Holy moly!
So basically, you plug the phaser into the loop on the loop pedal, and then adjust the blend as to how much phaser you want, and it has a bypass on it, so you can go full bozo phaser at any given time.
Yeah,
but it'll just be on in the background as to how much phase you want.
Yeah, that was my issue with the 90s and and all of them. It's like
the things are harsh. I agree with you so much.
Yeah.
They phase way too much, and unless you're trying to do something crazy, it's generally offensive. But if you have a little bit of it on, it's kind of sweet.
I want that on a T-shirt. Generally offensive. I like that.
That's my rank.
That's our new band name.
There it is, man.
So what's number 4?
Number 4 is just a crybaby. Gotta have a crybaby, because if you're bored or you just lost your way, a little bit of quacking and you're gonna find your way back in.
Do you have one that you favor?
Oh, the crybaby. I've got one. It's not a vintage unit or anything like that.
Yeah.
I probably bought it like in maybe the late 90s. I don't know. A lot of the shit that I think is new might be vintage by now because I'm old. But it works great. So it sounds great. There's nothing particularly special about it. It does have a phasal in it, but it came that way, so it's not like I did anything to it.
Yeah.
I know I've been meaning to send it to my boy Scotty Smith over, at Pro Analog to hype it up a little bit and make it more like a Super Quack. But at this point, it's stock, and it gets the job done.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's a solid approach. I applaud that solid approach.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have a lot of creativity, unfortunately.
That's probably the understatement of the year.
That would be the understatement of the year.
Yeah. Okay. So now the time that we've all been waiting for. We've got three monkeys on, well, two of the three monkeys anyways, on the line right now. And we're going to find out all about their approach to amplifiers. And they're also going to tell us about this really awesome solderless. That's
easy for you to say.
That's a hard one to say.
Solder.
I know, but the L trips me out. The solderless.
It's the solderless.
Solderless kits that they're doing, which I had some experience with and loved it.
Thank you.
Loving it.
That's McDonald's.
Oh, who let Ethel in?
Yeah.
What are you channeling, Ethel Merman?
Okay, so guys, how about giving me just a little bit of background? If you wouldn't mind, just take us to how you ramped up to doing Three Monkeys. Like a little bit of music background. What led you to meet up and do this?
Well, I guess we're probably going to have completely different stories about how this happened. Well, I was doing something different at the time when Greg found me, luckily. But I had started this other business called Blockhead Amplifiers, and it was with a good friend of mine, Keith Davidson, who was in New Jersey, and we were college buddies and bandmates and all that kind of good stuff. And, I've always been working with electronics since I was, basically old enough to hold a pair of pliers. And what we were doing at Blockhead was basically doing for Marshall what Victoria did for Fender. So we came up with the idea that, I always loved plexis and I've owned them forever and collected them and built them. So we figured we could build these amplifiers just kind of, because Victoria had proved that there's a market for reproductions of vintage equipment that were more accurate than what the original companies were making at the time. So we started doing that sort of thing. And then Greg found me. I started building amps for Brad and for Greg, and I'll let Greg take it from here for that, know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much it. I was in the studio with Aerosmith, in 2003, and they were doing this blues record and just, looking for different things, and not that they don't own enough gear, but, I was kind of tasked with getting different stuff for them just to record with. I got Joey Kramer a really nice, vintage Ludwig set, but I was just kind of asking around about, who makes because, in 2003, the boutique market wasn't as big as it is now.
No.
And so I was just asking around, and I got turned on to Blockhead. I got turned on to Greg Germino, who's actually, right here in our backyard, about half an hour away.
Yes, and you guys are, really quickly, where are you located right now?
We're in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
And there's a lot of both guitar makers, pedal builders, and amp builders here. I've lived here for 30 plus years. I think a lot of these people just moved here, so. But anyway, so I talked to Ozzy, and he actually built Brad a couple amps and drove them up from New York to Boston. And I met him on, I think
we met him at the warehouse.
I met him on a Sunday.
When the door opened.
Yeah, I met him on a Sunday at the Aerosmith warehouse, which is just chock full of gear, just ridiculous. So
and that's located where? Nice.
Yeah.
Dude,
you'll never
street
find
address, cross
that
streets.
itself could be 5 hours worth of material.
Yeah.
This warehouse, what they've got in there, it's amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, I have to go. I was trying to think the last time we inventoried it. It's been a couple of years, but there's a photo inventory of all the guys' gear, just so we can keep up with it for the most part. So Ozzy just came up and brought me these amps, and we ended up using them in the studio, and then and when that record was done, we took them out on tour. And
for
so
context,
so then,
you're teching at this point, yes?
Yeah. I've been a guitar tech for 20 plus years. I've been with Brad off and on 15 years now.
Right.
This year. So I've worked with a ton of people.
Brad Whitford, right?
Yeah, you should tell me about.
Yeah.
I brought up the amp when Brad was moving out, and then we went out to dinner, and that's how the whole.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of whole thing. I'd actually wanted to be. I love touring, but being away from home is kind of a pain, And so I was kind of looking for something else to do, like build guitars, build pedals, build amps, something like that. After talking to Ozzy and Greg Germino and Fred Tacone from Divided by 13, I was hey, I was thinking about starting this amp company, and they were all like super positive. They were like, yeah, do it, So Ozzy came up and brought me those amps, and we ended up going out to dinner with Brad that night.
After we were moving out his house.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was moving out of his house. We helped him move and loaded up trucks and stuff. And
that was your payment, right?
Yeah, exactly. He took us out to dinner. And I think Ozzy said something like, hey, have you told Brad about the amp thing? And Brad's like, what? And so I told him, I said, I think Ozzy and I are going to start an amp company. He's like, oh, well, I went in on that, And I mean, that's how it started. Literally.
Wow.
But it took a couple of years to come to fruition. I basically had to go to Brad, a couple of years after that and go, I can't work for you anymore if we're going to do this amp thing. Those guys tour at the time. They were touring, 6-8 months out of the year. It's consistently every year. So it was like, man, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this company off the ground if I'm, not home, and sometimes on the other side of the world. So, so that's basically it. I stopped working for him in May of 2007. And I think Ozzy came down to North Carolina that summer.
Yeah. It was 2007, 2008. Wasn't too long before Lehman Brothers collapsed. So it had to be 2007.
Yeah. Oh, well, we basically took 2007 to, prototype this first amp, and it was kind of my dream amp, and it was I think it turned out really well. I still think it's a great amp. That's the Orangutan, and I'm a 6v6 guy, although now I play a lot of 84 amps. But same thing. It's just tube. But yeah, I got Ozzy kind of to think outside the box, kind of outside of his comfort zone.
I hate 6v6s, or I did. Now I like them.
And Todd, you'll like Ozzy. He hates Stratocasters.
Oh. Well, there's two of them now that I know of.
I myself love Stratocasters.
Yeah,
that's my main guitar. So, but yeah, so we always test. Ozzy always tests amps with Strats. He says if it sounds good with a Strat, it'll sound good.
Well,
I have to credit that little piece to Tony Bruno from Bruno Amps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I used to hang out with him all the time, and he always said, "Get the worst sounding Stratocaster you can, and if you can make it sound good with that, you got something."
Yeah, they're like the Mr. Potato Head of guitars. You could put anything in those Stratocasters as far as pickups and whatever.
They only take Strat pickups.
Oh no, my friend!
Don't get me started.
Yeah,
Anyways.
that's why they came out with the swimming pool route.
Yeah,
exactly.
Anyways. Strats. Okay, so now you've done the proverbial jumping high five, and you're starting your company.
Yep, and then the stock market crashed.
Yeah, we basically released the Orangutan like the same week the stock market crashed in 2008.
Timing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's gotta suck a little bit.
It did.
So
yeah, I mean, we made it through, but that was it was kind of worrisome at the front end.
Well, tell me about your approach. I think let me just get this out of the way. Whoever's familiar with you already, if anybody is looking online right now, or will, these are not what you might call entry level amps per se, just from a price and power standpoint. This is a little bit more of an advanced amp. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say that it's kind of what it grew out of was more of building amps for a certain sound, but also for flexibility with players. Our amps aren't really like we didn't just copy a circuit. We didn't just go, oh, we're gonna make a Tweed Deluxe.
Right.
All of our circuits are unique. They're just amalgamations of other things. But all of our amps are very dynamic. That it has that nth thing. It has that thing.
Yeah.
And it has to have that thing, or it doesn't leave the shop.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave prototype stage if it doesn't have that thing. And it's just that thing it's that thing you can't put your finger on, but you know it when you hear it.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, I could say that we did, for, let's say, designing the Orangutan, which was the amp that we spent about a year working on down here. The first thing we did was just decide on what tubes we wanted to use, right? And just went off of that. And then how loud do we want this amp to be? Because we want it to be able to sit on stage. We don't want it to be overpowering where you got to go the holy whatever out of it. Yeah. And it should have the center frequency somewhere about where the front of house guy wants it. So there isn't going to be a whole lot of manipulation of the EQ of the amplifier. So, with Greg, with his experience on the road and my experience of just locking myself in my house and never leaving, the two of us were able to come up with something that someone could use. And that entire year that we were developing, we would literally, thanks to Greg, be able to bring it to the amphitheater here in Raleigh, where all the acts would come and play, and basically, bring it to different guitar players, Counting Crows, Cheap Trick, all these different guys, and we'd just play the amp before a sound check or in the back room, or sometimes we'd blow it out on the loading dock, and try to get feedback from, top players and say, what do you think about it and what could we do differently to make it fit in where you don't have to do a whole lot for it. To make it sound good.
And we sent prototypes off to Matt Scannell from Vertical Horizon, who's a tremendous player and just has good ears. And we sent one to Audley Freed, who's in Sheryl Crow's band now, and who was playing with Frampton probably at the time.
At that time, it was definitely Frampton. And did we send was it a prototype to when he was doing Courtney Love's record? What's his face? Yeah, Pete Thorne. We sent one to Pete Thorne. We met him through when he was doing Chris Cornell. Just like a bunch of those guys, and and we were just like, be brutally honest. Tell us what you like about it. Tell us what you don't like about it. And we just kind of refined it from there. And I mean, the whole way we made that amp in the first place was, we were going for the sound on the record. Humble
we
Pie.
We were listening to I had this weird live Humble Pie show from the Winterland, which I think is way better than any of the stuff that they're more well known for. And just like old ZZ Top, old like live Ted Nugent, live Aerosmith. We're just kind of going for that just that vibe, that kind of vintage,
big,
and not, and also like compressed. Like we wanted the sound coming out of the speakers to be more like it was been already mastered. In other words,
I got you.
There was definitely something with that, because I remember when we were talking to Eddie Berman, from at that point, he's at Sound Pure now, but at that point, Indoor Storm, and Eddie's a great player and has a great ear. And he was really into that idea that, the amp should be somewhat forgiving for the player, that it can't be like a 68 Super Lead where, it's like it's like trying to diffuse a landmine, if you do anything.
With my playing, I need a lot of forgiveness.
Yeah.
So, we designed the amp to have a little bit of extra compression there so that it would kind of, get soft on the attack and come up and, So it was listening to a lot of people, whether they were professionals or whether they were in contact with customers and what they were looking for, like music store owners. We took a lot of input from them as well.
Interesting. Yeah. You think you kind of, to some degree gave it away when you're like, I wanted this to make sure that when the sound was coming out right out of the gate, that the front of the house guy, was like, check, that's money. And
Right.
I think, when we kind of set this up, just the fact that you were already designing for, this is, I guess maybe a touring man's amp.
Right.
This
But
isn't necessarily the starter amp you're going to pick up
No, I mean, especially at the time. I mean, you're talking about some heavy hitter guys out there. I mean,
Sure.
like Divided by 13, right? Was coming out about the same time I was doing Blockhead, and I love Freddie's amps. I mean, those things are great. And Brad was playing those FTR 37s.
yeah.
And that was the mix, was like a JTM 45 that I built in this, FTR 37, and the two of them up on stage blended together gave him this really amazing sound. And maybe that's partially where the 6v6 thing came from in a way, was hearing, I didn't want to rip off Freddie's, and there's nothing similar about our amp to his, but, I would have to say that, his work has also inspired me. There's absolutely no question about that. Yeah.
So so at this point you've got your flagship, the orangutan, right? That's
Right.
Yeah.
right, and that's the one that people are starting to say, hey, wait a minute, this is some serious equipment here. At what point did you decide to start to fan out the line a little bit? Because I know that you guys got what, about 7 amps?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, that doesn't count all the custom stuff.
Sure,
Oh, yeah.
sure.
We do a lot of one-off
A
things.
lot of one-off things, and but yeah, I mean, I think we did the orangutan for about a year, just exclusively did that,
And then came the Grease Monkey
And
that
then-
I came up with.
and then the Grease Monkey came up as a player that wanted like an AC30 kind of on steroids. So
I like that.
so more Brian May, less Tom Petty.
Right.
Exactly. So it was like putting what would Dumble have done if he had an AC30 instead of a blackface Fender?
Okay.
So that was kind of where it came from.
Right.
And so it was, and the guy that we did it for was played a lot of slide and played with his fingers, so it had to be super like touch sensitive, and it was actually his model, and actually the first couple of production models we did were too sensitive, like people guys that play with a pick that couldn't control it. It was because that's just kind of how it is. And that comes from like when I was playing in bands and was playing like 50-watt Marshalls, like metal front 70s Marshalls. I had this one that, man, it sounded so good right before it blew up. It was like, and it was all, it was.
Reinhold says the Marshall sounds great just before it blows up.
Yeah. So like anytime I was playing a gig and I was like, man, this sounds great. I'm like, don't think that up in smoke it went. So that's kind of the Grease Monkey was kind of that thing where it's, kind of full tilt, almost uncontrollable, but has that, has that thing about it. And then we kind of expanded from there.
Did you guys both know what that thing was? Like when you're starting to do this, was that identified, or was it you didn't know what it was, but you kind of like you were both gonna be okay when you found it?
Right. I think we both have really good ears. I think Ozzy's ears are probably a little bit better than mine. I think mine have been abused a little too much. Even though I wear hearing protection when I'm on the road, and usually wear in-ear monitors, on stage. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, and we both can hear. I think we make a really good partnership because we both can hear different things. And can basically sit there when we're prototyping an amp, and Oz is real good about like, hey, what do you think of this? Or listen to this. He'll substitute one part, and for another, and we'll A/B them.
I do it while it's on too.
Yeah, and he does it while it's on.
Whoa.
stick the thing in there with my hand onto both turrets.
It's like walking the tightrope, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you keep one hand in your pocket, you're going to be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
We got.
You keep that one on your
On the ground or something.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing. I mean, basically, you can. I shouldn't say this because I don't want people doing it. But basically, the electrical signal, which is what it is, has to go to ground for it to develop any kind of current. Right. So if there's no path to ground, I mean, you can basically lick the power supply if you want it.
Right, because
as long as you're isolated, you'll be fine.
Because it's an open circuit.
Yeah, it's an open circuit, and your potential is, not there. So there is no electrical potential.
I like that as a T-shirt too. Your potential is not there.
That's
sounds a lot
Just not
Hey,
good enough.
Ozzy, I think me and you need to talk after this. You know what I'm saying?
Your potential is generally offensive.
There it is.
I think our new tagline is "You can lick the circuit."
There you go. There it is.
So you guys have some great amp designs, and I was kind of curious about how do you go about matching that up with various speakers that are out there?
Sanchez.
Yeah. We actually kind of got lucky early on. We hooked up with the guys at Warehouse Guitar Speakers.
Yeah. Wayne and the boys.
Wayne and those guys, and they really sorted us out. And the speaker that we got, which is a Three Monkeys branded speaker. They build. It's just. And we just kind of designed the amp around it. Once we knew what we liked about the speaker, we kind of just design around it. And then, we use Celestions and certain things just for that kind of sound.
Yeah.
But mostly it's those WGS.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's out there in the speaker world listening, I would have to say I wish somebody would come up with a speaker that was, let's say, somewhere around like 92 or 93 dB efficiency. I think there's a market for that. I mean, I think, like when you're talking about matching speakers to amps, I think that's one of the most overlooked things in terms of your playing style is the efficiency of the speaker. I mean, if clean headroom is something that we hear a lot, players looking for more of it, and they seem to think that's mostly going to come through a different preamp or a different tube choice. But to me, it's all about, basically maximizing the amount of power that's available at any given point if you're looking for the cleanest possible headroom. And speaker efficiency plays great into that. So if you have a very efficient speaker, let's say if you're dealing with like a 100 dB speaker, I mean, that's 1 watt in, 100 dB out. If you're looking at, that would be something like a Celestion, a 65 might be somewhere around there. But if you're looking at a Vintage 30, you're looking at 3 or 4 dB drop. Or any of like the vintage style, like the G12Hs, you're looking at 3 or 4 dBs below that. So, a lot of people will complain that they can't get the high clean headroom out of Celestions. And, that may be part of the speaker efficiencies, but also for kind of gigging out. Sometimes those, 96, 97, 98 dB speakers are too loud.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that the world is going. I mean, like the gigs that you play mostly, that we all play, you can't be blasting people out.
No.
You really want to be at a comfortable level.
You won't be able
to
mix
I think
it.
there is a market for that.
I was glad that you elaborated on that efficiency issue. I think that's something that I feel like I'm fighting a little bit right now because I actually have one of Dave Harris's amps. He was an early guest. He does Tube Amp Factory and
Local.
He's a local guy here. And
Okay.
he the amp that I have it's a 14 watt, and for me to get any kind of breakup on it, I mean, I have to be bringing the walls down. And
yeah.
On one end, like I like that I can have that headroom because if I'm, I don't have a stock of amps, so I kind of have, there's a utility. And sometimes if I'm using a particular pedal, it plays better if it's hitting a broke up signal, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, I'm sitting there trying to figure out all the little factors. I've got vintage 30s in it right now, 16 ohm, and We just, we had that interview with Warehouse Guitar Speakers, and so I'm going to be calling them up and just seeing like, hey, what would you do with this? See if they have any suggestions. But
I mean, I think there's absolutely a way to, change the coil, the magnet structure, whatever, to get whatever kind of efficiency you're looking for. So I'd absolutely go to Wayne and see if he'll, if you got the time, he'll probably want to work with you. I mean, he's a good guy. He's got a lot of creative energy to him.
Yeah.
So I would think, that might be a great solution, is to find the perfect efficiency for your amp.
So many
and
people
for the gigs
just don't give enough stock to what the speakers are doing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, if you look at, let's say, the difference between JBL's, Altec, Celestions, Utahs, I mean, you're going to be playing anything from like, Brian Setzer to Metallica with the same amp.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement with you. I mean, the amplifier's job is a waveform, and that's, your waveform is your waveform. Your speaker then is going to be the most definitive piece of equipment that's going to determine the sound curve of your amplifier, like how the impedance curve is on that speaker. Because at different frequencies, what impedance is that? How does it work out in that respect is going to determine the tone of your amp more than anything you can do in the circuit. Yeah. I'm a complete believer in that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is Jared. I haven't spoken a while on this podcast.
Hi, Jared.
So I wanted to reintroduce myself.
He's dying over here.
I want to say something. Let me be a part of it. No, I was looking at the amp selection on the website earlier, and I'm very, very impressed with the design. So what my question was, what or who, how did you get the influence to build these cabs the way they look? I mean, they're fantastic in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So what drove you to that?
They do stand alone.
Yeah.
So basically, when we started,
the cabinets are all Greg.
Our first kind of feeling. Actually, I think this all stemmed from. So we went to go see John Mayer. My buddy Renee is his guitar tech, and I also know his tour manager and a bunch of other people on his crew. But anyway, so we went to the
guy
show.
Makes the fingerboard oil.
Is it?
So, yeah. Renee's been.
Tell me,
John's
makes
tech
good
for a
stuff,
while.
man.
Yeah, and he was Stevie Ray Vaughan's tech too. So
yeah.
But yeah, so we went to the show, and somebody was like, "Oh, I hear David Ryan Harris is playing a Blockhead," and we're like, "Oh, cool!" So we're standing out at front of house.
Oh yeah.
With the Chad, his mixer at the time, and we're like, "Oh, cool! Look, it is a Blockhead." And then so I'm like, "Let's go down front. We'll take a picture." And so we kept walking, and about every 25 feet, we were like, "Nope, it's not a Blockhead. It must be a Blankenship." And we're like, "Nope, that's a Germino. Nope, no." I mean, it was just one of those, it was like a generic Marshall-looking box. So I was like, "That's what we're not gonna do."
Exactly. Good idea.
So what I wanted to do was to make it so when you saw it, like divided by 13s, when you see those, you know what it is. When you see a Marshall, you know what it is. You see a Fender, you know what it is. It's Vox. It's the stuff's iconic. So I like really weird. I'm sitting in my office with my odd amp collection, but I like really weird little combos. I have Supros from the 60s and 50s. I have amps from the 40s. I have a Melkor. I have Watkins.
The Minstrel.
Yeah.
That thing looks like a World War II.
I have Premiers. I have Tyscos. I have all these weird amps. But I saw a picture on eBay of a Panoramic, which was a Magnetone offshoot, and the way the guy photographed it, it looked like it had angled sides, and I'm like, oh, that looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I started drawing stuff up and came up with that design, and Oz came up with how the piping kind of works, just from a way to Tolexing it for one, and also we decided to go. We actually used Brady guitar wire as the piping.
Cool.
Which is one, cool. And so that was the way the original design came out. And then people were like, "Oh, it kind of looks like the Vox Transonic," and I was like, "Ooh, you're right." And I kind of got that. I think that was in my subconscious because I did some shows with Cheap Trick years ago, and at the time Tom was using those transonic cabinets on stage, kind of as dummies. I don't think he was running the speakers, but they have that kind of
typical.
Upside down, kind of coffin look. So that's how the 5-degree angle came. And
I was about to say the dreaded
5-degree angle, because man, it is hard to do woodworking with 5 degrees. And originally, I think the first prototype we did, it was 5 degrees on each side, and then it was 5 degrees back on the front.
Oh yeah, it was.
And
back.
Ozzy put his foot down. He goes, "We're not doing that."
Oh, we'd still be making the first cabinet.
All those compound angles were just a huge pain. Yeah. And then a lot of my other so that's the general idea. And the general idea is the kind of the shape. Yeah. And we kind of came up. We called it the new shape of tone. Yeah. I think that was our first kind of thing, and we're
that's clever.
So I think it's worked for us as far as being, when people see our amps, they know what they are.
It's eye candy to me. It's really cool.
And I love old Vox amps. I've got the Vox book. Actually, I think I gave it to Ozzy for Christmas, but I somehow ended up with it. I gave him the schematic part.
It worked out perfectly. Yeah. I got the schematics, and he's got the pictures.
So there's a lot of prototypes in that Vox book.
Beautiful.
Of stuff that never saw the light of day, or if it did, it was very few of them, and they were only in the UK, and they're not around anymore. So I took a little inspiration from that. The Orangutan Junior, I took inspiration from the Watkins Joker, which is a very bizarre kind of one-off. They didn't make very many of those, but it has like a microphone stand built into it and a tape echo built into it. And it's one of the coolest looking. Watkins Joker, look it up. It's one of the coolest looking amps you'll ever see. But I kind of took a little kind of cues from that, and I constantly, my business card says idea monkey. Yeah, nice. I'm that guy. I constantly have furniture ideas and cabinet design ideas. I've been building pedal boards since the early 90s. I was selling pedal boards on the internet in 1994 that were my design.
For those who had it, right?
Yeah. And I was selling them through Rudy's Music on 48th Street at the time too, and a lot of heavy duty players were picking them up. But I'm constantly like coming up with stuff, almost to the point of it's ridiculous. But I just have notebooks and notebooks full of ideas.
That's a good problem to have, man. We've talked several times about how much inspiration the guitar world draws from the hot rod world. And
there's that too, because we're both hot rodders.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like something Big Daddy Rat got a hold of or something,
Yeah. So I'm really into, like, my house is very mid-century modern. I like all that kind of style furniture. I build most of the furniture that's in the house, and but I'm really into 50s era custom stuff. Larry Watson, Big Daddy, and Barris, all those.
Yeah.
So, I've got books.
I could definitely see the Barris thing in there.
Stuff.
You just need to work in some kind of plexi bubble kind of thing into the next one with like a monkey head inside it.
They do have plexi. The logo is a piece of plexi.
Right.
So it kind of looks like a jukebox almost, because and we use crushed glass, which is drum covering. Crushed glass, because actual colored glass is crushed and impregnated into this acrylic.
Wow.
And then we silk screen it.
That's awesome.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Super cool. So are you're any new developments in the amp world? Or are you kind of just like, hey, we're good with the designs that we have right now? Well, where are you with that?
We're always doing stuff. I've had an idea to do an amp, just more of a look of the amp, and also and we kind of have this kind of sound nailed down too, but it's been probably 3 or 4 years in the works, and I just haven't had time to finish we did a one-off for one of Brad Whitford's kids. He's got a couple of kids that are monster players, but his son Harrison, we did an amp for him, and it's our kind of our NYC amps and it looks like it's kind of has a Subway look. I've been going to New York since the 90s, and especially with touring, but just even for vacation and stuff, and I have a lot of friends up there. So I love the Subway and stuff. You know, it's funny, Ozzy's from Yonkers, and he hates the Subway and everything about New York City. He hates Manhattan, but I love it, and that's kind of the one thing we've been working on, and I know Ozzy works on circuits constantly.
I'm getting more into the recording aspect now. I like doing you know, it's like at a certain point you feel like you've done everything you can do, so you want to branch out into other areas. So that's, I guess, what's been occupying a lot of our times now. We're like the audio connectors and the DC connectors, and I've been building recording equipment, like kind of into compression. A lot of different types of compressors now too. You know, I should throw a shout out to Hairball Audio. They're 1176. I've built like, I don't know, half a dozen of them. Those things are incredible. That should be my fifth pedal. If you could put it on the floor, that would be the thing I would have on all the time.
Well, that's a good segue into, it seems as though you guys would make a killer line of pedals.
We could. And we have made them, not for sale, but I've always done like switchers, loopers, stuff like that over the years, custom stuff for different people. And Ozzy's done I know Ozzy's built quite a few pedals. But I think once we really got to the point where we were going to actually build one to put out, it was like the amp business. It was oversaturated.
Yeah. And
we just felt like it was going to be not good for us, not good as a company, at least. So
I see. Yeah, maybe diluting the power of what you guys already have or something, or.
Yeah. Just, you know, it takes a lot of focus to run a business. So, and our focus, you know, has been mostly on the cables in the last maybe year or so. I mean, we haven't stopped building amps, but the cables have been the focus, just because, you know, it was something we invented. The DC cables are something we invented, and so nobody knows really to look for it. So, you know, if people don't know to Google that such thing exists, you know, then, you know, we're not going to sell any. So we're just trying to get that stuff in as many people's hands as possible, and to get in front of everybody's, you know, faces, and show them what a cool product it is. And I came up with the idea because there wasn't such a thing, you know. And
so
it was something I thought
set this up a little bit, just really quick. So we're transitioning from, you're doing full on amazing amps into, okay, now we're into little bitty parts. There's still three monkeys. And most people, when they're thinking of the cables and pedal board cables, they're thinking of the actual like connection cables.
Right.
But you went a whole different route to start off with. What was the genesis of that?
It's really easy. I was building a pedal board for myself, which I never do. And I always make my own power cables. I have for years. I have a bag that has every, you know, end for 9 volts and 18 volts or whatever, you know, that you could have positive tip, negative tip, all that stuff. And so I always make my own little cables. Well, I'm 53 this year. So I can't see anymore. I had 20/15 vision my whole life, you know. And so I was trying to make these cables, and I'm like, I can't solder these tiny little connections. I was like, somebody's got to make this solderless, because I always use solderless cables on my pedal boards just because it was easy, and you can make, you know, custom links really quickly. And so I pulled out the Google, and I was like, you got to be kidding me! Nobody makes this. So I took a solderless cable that I had, an audio cable. And I took it out in the garage and took my Dremel out, and I cut it in half. I cut the audio part off of it. I took it apart. I took a 2.1 millimeter 9 volt and cut that in half. And then I mated them together very crudely with some solder and tested it. And it worked, you know, with the standard, you know, solderless cable. And I sent Ozzy a picture, and I still have the message somewhere. I sent Ozzy a text with a picture, and he's like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, it's a solderless DC cable. He goes, where did you get that? And I was like, I made it. He's like, ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's literally where it came from. And this was a couple of years ago, and it took us, and Oz and I both have an engineering background. So we think about stuff like that, like an engineer. And we also think, just from, like for me, from touring and him from, building amps and stuff, we think of stuff as how it gets worn and, how it's used. So we just refined the design.
Yeah,
my original design.
they had sucked.
Yeah. So we kind of figured out that the normal solderless design with the set screw on the side is kind of flawed in that when you push in the set screw, you're moving the cables kind of sideways, and that's moving it off of the center pin.
Right.
There's a problem with maintaining
makes
concentricity within the cable within the connector itself.
So we solved that by basically just threading the where the cable goes in, and you just basically just screw the ends on. You don't need a set screw, and it's bonded to the cable. And believe me, you're not going to pull it out of there.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, we knew when we first did the DC connectors, when we got like some prototypes made that were that were basically the side screw model. I mean, the failure rate, the attempts to try to get one of these cables to work, I mean, it was frustrating. And it's not like I don't spend a lot of time around wire.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking to myself, if I can't get these things to work better than 30% of the time, no one's going to get these things to work.
Yeah.
So we really had to drill down into this thing and figure out what is the reason, what are the problems, and how can you best solve the problems that these past, solderless connectors have faced. And we decided that set screw, when you're trying to maintain something completely concentric, and then you're applying, sort of lateral pressure to it, it's fouling everything up. So, we just figured that there has to be a better way to do it. And I've had some machining background in my life, so was able to think of a screw type of thing. And we just made some prototypes on my lathe in my garage, and made a few of those, and they worked like a charm. I mean, I was bringing them up to the mall and just like asking people to try to make the thing work. And I couldn't get anybody who couldn't make one work. So I thought that, this is the way they should be made. So,
yeah. Well, it's frustrating too, especially, when you're talking about that kind of a failure rate. Those, typically solderless cable kits have not come in at bargain prices. Like you're paying a premium for that stuff.
It's paying a premium for something that works terribly.
Yeah. And that's a tough stigma to get past. And
the failure rate also is a tough stigma.
It is.
We almost don't really even want to call our cables solderless, just because there's the stigma. I know a lot of guys that are like, oh, no, I would never, don't touch that stuff. It's terrible. And especially a lot of touring guys that I know. But I've sent them to a lot of guys that have always been no, and they're like, hey, can I get some more of these?
Yeah.
Exactly. And to some of you touring guys out there on the road, not all of you, but some of you, you know who you are, you can't solder. I've seen it. So yeah, it helps with that aspect too. Because I mean, some of the solder joints I've seen made out on the road, I'm like, did you think it was candle wax or something?
Yeah.
More is better.
Well,
solder is not glue.
Yes, that was the. I think I actually forgot to say in the demo that I had it written down real big, and I managed to forget to say it. But yes, solder is not glue.
Say it now.
Yeah, well, I got to do the other one for the actual DC cables. That whole thing, the whole like make your own cable, is kind of it's a weird idea. Just in that there are so many that you don't have to make that theoretically work right out of the bag, but the kind of industry you guys are sitting in, the guitar world, it's all about. I've said this 1,000 times. This is the thing that I pound my chest about. It's like, this is the fingerprint. This is what makes my board, right? Because I figured out how long that was because I took the time to do it. It allows somebody to get much more intimately connected with the gear that they're using beyond just buying it. And that's a really unique thing.
That's a brilliant point.
Yeah. I think that goes, especially for guitar players, your amp, your guitar, everything. It's like, this is mine. This is my own customization of, whether you're just putting a sticker on your guitar.
Yeah. And you don't have to have an engineering degree to do it. That's
right.
the cool part.
Right.
It takes seconds.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying, that nobody should solder a cable. We're not saying that. But if you're on the road, like I've been and you have a soldered cable fail, 9 times out of 10, you take you unscrew it, and the center connection where it was soldered will have broken off.
Yeah.
That's mostly due to the wire stripping.
Yeah, so what we figured out was it's mostly due to the wire stripping, and because most people don't know how to strip wire correctly without actually, and everybody knows this. You go to strip a wire, a braided copper wire, and there you get a couple of extra little few of them fall on the table,
sure.
And you're like, I don't worry about that. There's 15 other ones.
Right.
Well, those, you severed those, so you probably nicked the rest of them. They just didn't fail yet, and that's what happens. They end up failing. So
that was one of my favorite parts about putting the cables that you get. You guys are nice enough to send a kit my way, and it was fun to do, and I wasn't worried about doing it wrong, and that to me was a big deal. And I didn't have to strip the wires, and I have all the stuff to do it, but I didn't have to do that. And it wasn't flipping rocket science. It was like, cut the thing, screw it on, you're done.
Yeah. That's the way it should be. And go play guitar.
Go play guitar. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and if you're the type of guy that likes to change your floor on the floor every once in a while, and the footprint is a little different, you're literally 10 seconds away from, mounting it up, both DC and audio cables, and changing out your pedal board. If you want to throw pedals in out day and night, if you want to chuck something in for another gig, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
If you want to run the wire up through the bottom of the pedal board and have everything hidden, you're not having to work with like a half-inch or an inch long stub that's sticking out of a tiny little hole in your pedal board that you have to solder through, right?
Right.
I mean, it just makes things very convenient. That's all.
Especially with the compact boards now,
yes,
we mentioned that in the last episode.
And we made the DC connectors as small as we could make them, and we also made the audio connectors as small as we could make them. And as far as I know, they're the smallest ones.
We can
on
make
the market.
them smaller, but you can't actually pull them out anymore.
You couldn't actually screw them in.
Cool. Well, so everybody, if you are interested at all, and you should be, as if you're playing guitar, you got a pedal board, I highly recommend checking these out. Where can they find that?
3monkeyssolderless.com.
Okay, and that's not on the main site, right?
Well, what we did was we split the sites.
Right.
So we have two main sites. The Three Monkeys amp site also has the solderless or a link to the solderless on it, and the solderless site has a link to the amps.
Okay.
I just didn't want people to get too confused. I kind of looked at the analytics one time, and it was like people would come. You could see they came to look at the solderless, and then they were like, "Ooh, shiny amp." Yep. And they'd go off to the amps, not that there's anything wrong with that, but then, a lot of people just forget, like, why did I come here? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks guys so much.
Thank you.
It's been really super duper fantastic talking to you guys and learning about this business.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you bet. Hopefully, who knows, someday maybe we'll get to play one of those bad boys. When next time we're hanging out with Bradley Whitford,
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to get to our much-loved segment. Jared's chomping it. Wait, not yet, Jared. Hang on. Just wait. He's leaning in. He's taking a big, deep breath.
Got the W sound.
Okay, now go.
Would you rather?
Oh, God.
All right.
Would you rather?
He's got a really good one for us this week.
So you're at a gig, and a high-profile gig, whatever, and the guitar tech walks up to you with a Gibson.
Your guitar fails.
That's right. And he says, you have these two guitars to choose from. You have a Gibson 335, an old, nice vintage one, like a 1959, because those are kind of sought after. And then you have the Rickenbacker 360. And you have to choose one of those guitars to play the gig with.
I don't have to pay for the guitar.
That's
right?
right. You just get to play it. Now, the stipulation is you have to smash that guitar
That's
at the
your
end of the
signature
show.
move at the end of the show.
You have to
the
smash
crowd's
it.
waiting for you to smash it.
Yep. Which guitar are you going to choose to enjoy during the show and then probably reluctantly smash it up?
All right. Tony.
I'm going to go with the Rick. As much as I love Ricks.
What?
I am.
You're super
But-
Rick guy.
I know, but one of my favorite pictures of Pete Townsend is him sitting in front of a wall.
Oh, because you want to smash it for the... Okay, I get it. All right.
That's what I'm after. It's not that...
You want to have a smashed one
Yes.
after. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you now.
So there's a great black and white photo of Townsend sitting in front of a wall of smashed up Rickenbackers. God only knows what happened to all of those guitars.
Yeah.
Huh.
But,
Okay. That's
but-
a unique angle.
But in honor of Pete Townsend, I'll smash the Rick.
Okay.
Man.
Sweet.
Ozzy.
Yo, I'm going to smash the 335. And it's mostly because, well, first of all, I'd prefer playing the 335 over the Rick for sure for the song.
Uh-huh.
Second of all, I don't think I've ever played one of those vintage 335, so I'd like to at least play one.
There you go.
And if I got to smash it to do it, that's fine.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Jared.
I am going to go with the Rickenbacker because I love Gibsons.
Okay,
He's like the polar
you're
opposite of
smashing. You're smashing it because you're like
Less
screw
of
it,
two
I don't
evils,
care.
man. No, the less of two evils.
All right, you couldn't bring yourself to smash the beautiful 335.
No, I can't.
Okay.
I'm more familiar with those guitars, the Gibson 335s.
Okay.
So that's a real easy one for me. Although I still will be reluctant to smash perfectly good, beautiful guitar.
Right. All right, Greg.
I couldn't smash a .NET 335, so I'd have to go with the
I'm
Rick.
with you, man. I'm with you. Yep.
Well, I'm gonna pull a Spinal Tap, and I would smash the Rick with the 335.
Winner.
Oh, that's the best answer. Best answer.
That's good, man.
Yeah. No, I love the idea like that. I hadn't even thought of that angle. Like, it would be pretty rad to have a completely destroyed, amazing guitar after you played it. Like Greg said, like I want to play one of those. But okay, awesome. Well, that was fun, right?
That was a good one.
That was
You know
cool.
who has fun and who has two thumbs?
This guy.
This guy
That's
and that
right.
guy and you guy. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We have had a blast talking with Three Monkeys. We hope to maybe talk to them again another time soon, as we like to do on the show. I love bringing people back and having further chats with them.
Love to come back.
Excellent. That's good
Anytime.
to hear. You bet. We want to say thank you to our executive producers for supporting our podcast. Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, David Wolfson, Matt Brammer, Carlos Mancha,
Yeah.
and Pete Marshall,
Pete.
new guy. Hey, if you want to be an executive producer on the site, you can head on over to patreon.com/the guitar knobs to find out how. Guys, we're going to let you go, but not without tears
Awesome.
in our eyes.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
You
I'm so
bet.
glad we had this time together.
It
It's
was
been
very
awesome.
special.
Yeah. Subscribe.
Yeah.
Hey, really quick, just want to say we do have a clean rating, so if you guys can drop a couple stuff, but if you can avoid the,
I was going to ask.
That's
that,
fine.
'cause Unfortunately, where I grew up, it's kind of, I don't even notice it.
It's an
yeah,
adjective.
And I'm a roadie.
yeah,
and I'm
I know.
dirty and I have roadie mouth.
There's a lot of dirty mouth in here too when it's not rolling, but
Go
yeah,
try to clean it up.
yeah, clean up your act.
I'm sorry if I offended anyone.
No, not at all. Just Yeah. Okay, everybody get it out. Okay. Anyway. And then we'll get on with our interview. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.